is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess, yeah. Life is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess, yes. Life is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess. I'm trying, I'm crying, I feel like I'm dying. I'm doing my best.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to Being Human and Other Shit. I already feel like we're going to laugh a lot during this episode because we have Katie, who is my friend, and Allison, who is my friend, and Melissa, who is my best friend.
Your friend. Oh, he's so weird right now.
Because I just can't look at Katie.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not
Let's do the land acknowledgement.
Just sitting. I swear. I'm trying
stare at her
to
forehead.
behavior.
Doing nothing.
Sorry.
This is a very
All right.
serious topic too, guys. Come on, get
I
it
know.
together. So today we are recording from the ancestral homeland of the Nisenan people. We acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. And today we have Stacy's friends.
Allison and Katie. Also, every time you do the land acknowledgement, I don't know why, but I always want to giggle just because you're being hella serious. So I always want to laugh, and I'm like, this is not a laughing matter.
It's not.
This is not a laughing matter. Anyway, so today,
And
moving
neither
on.
is this episode.
Yeah, literally. So we're going to talk a lot of vagina talk today.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about these.
One of my favorite topics, to be honest.
I mean, that and ass play is what we generally talk about.
Yeah.
So nothing that new, I guess. But we're going to talk about the traumatic experiences these ladies have had with childbirth. And to be honest with you, I think no one talks about it.
Yep.
So we really want to like bring some recognition to it and how hard it is. I think not even just to go through it, but be a mom, right? Like the pressures of being a mom.
Yeah.
Like, so we're not going to do any background today. We're going to get right into their birthing stories. I almost think we should start with Katie because I feel like Allison's got multiple kids and it's going to get real serious.
It's gonna get real.
It's going to get real. Yeah.
I'll warm
So,
up.
yeah. I'll warm the crowd up. I'm the fluffer in this situation.
Yeah, I was pregnant.
Did a baby come out of
With
your
a
vagina?
With a baby. While I was pregnant, I was going through a lot of stress, and I had gestational diabetes, which was like something that usually is genetic or like your age, but it wasn't for me. So that was like something that was like a little bump in the road, which I feel like always happens when you're pregnant. It's like, oh, new surprise, cool, this is what I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I had like a pretty typical pregnancy. Like, I was just really excited to be a mom. I always wanted to be a mom. I was 33, and I didn't know if I was going to be a mom, so it was like, yes, like I was so grateful. I was so into it. So then when it came time to deliver my daughter, I went in at first around like 7 p.m. because I was like having some contractions, but you don't really know. Like there were times where I was like, oh, this is it. And then I'd be like calling everyone, you know, and then I'd be like, oh, false alarm. Like,
Yeah.
Never mind. I farted.
Yeah, exactly.
I have acid reflux, so let's
Exactly.
pay $500 in the
That was
emergency room.
exactly what it'd be. So finally, then it was like, then they would say like, you're going to know like when you're actually in active labor. And you definitely do. So
What is that feeling like though? Like for you?
But honestly, I was just like, I don't want to, why did I do this to myself? I want to die. Like, I'm gonna die. Like, I was insane. Like, I literally lost my mind. And I didn't have my partner at the time, wasn't there for any of the birthing classes or any of that. So, like, he had zero skills in navigating my situation.
Yeah. Oh, it's just for people that are not listening to this on Spotify. We have Melissa and I have pure horror on our faces, and we're barely into this.
I'm scared.
I'm like, I almost said talk to us like we're ignorant. Like, no, we actually are. We don't have children.
I know zero things about this.
Yeah. So I go in at first at 7 because I'm having like mild contractions, and they send me back. They're like, oh, it's your first baby. Don't you worry. Like, go take a bath, relax. Everything's going to be fine. And I'm like, this is not right, you know? But anyway, I leave. As soon as we get to the house, so like the hospital's in Roseville, I live here, and as soon as we get back, I'm like in full-blown active labor, like hot mess. And so you have to call though before, at least at Kaiser, you have to call before and be like, oh, I have this many contractions within this amount of time before they admit you. So I'm like, okay.
Cool.
Exactly. I'm like, great. So I get in, we drive back to the hospital. I don't know why, but like that was the slowest like Brandon ever drove, which I'm like, ah!
Yeah. You're like, where's the police escort?
And literally like, yeah. So then there would be times too, again, I didn't remember, like you don't remember any of the stuff where it's like, you got to breathe, you got to do it. Like you just don't like remember that. I was like in so much pain. So I'm like clutching like the car, and then he's got to drop me off to go park the car. And so I'm like, oh my God, like how am I gonna go in here and like not have like contractions in front of like the whole lobby, you know? So anyway, I'm like, like sign in, they're like buzz me in, and I'm like, and as soon as I get to the desk, I'm like, I was like swearing like nonstop. So then they're like, okay, like you're ready, you know? So then they like go
That's
in.
what it took, a series of fucks?
Yeah, totally. So I go in, and they like set me all up, and they're like, okay, it's happening, you know? And it feels like surreal. It doesn't feel like, at least for me, it didn't feel like it was me. Like it felt like I was like watching this basically, and like just insane. And I remember the lady was like, "You need to breathe," and I was like, ah. And I remember being like, "How many kids do you have?" You know? And she was like, "I've got 5," and I was like, "Oh shit, okay."
I'm breathing.
I'm breathing. So then they're like, you know, so then I felt like I was like taken over by like a weirdo who I'm like, oh, you know, doing all these things that like seem really cliche, but it actually is helpful. But anyway, so I'm
like
making all these sounds
coming out of
Yeah, exactly. It was like I was possessed. So I'm like making these weird sounds, and I'm like just in it. And then I got the epidural. The problem for me was from like the time, and I was already like I went in just within a few hours. Like I went in at 7. When I was at 7, I was 3 centimeters. When I went in at like 10, by the time it all like got back into a room with the epidural, I was like 7 to 8 centimeters. So it happened really fast. The whole time, my baby's heart rate was like really chill. So they got kind of nervous about that, and they got more and more nervous about that the longer I was there. Mm-hmm. So then they're going through like the list of things that they want to do. And I knew like going in, like just like physically, like I'd probably be a C-section person because my mom had C-sections. My mom's like one of 6 girls. They all had C-sections. We're all very like similar frames. Yeah. So I was like, okay. And you write out your birth plan, you know, and you're like,
does that ever actually happen?
No.
Only
okay.
So
yeah. I feel like you're lucky.
So yeah. So I was like, I'm down to have like, I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to push and then be emergency C-section. Like I'm down to have a C-section. Like I'm expecting that. Anyway, so the doctor I had was like a resident, and so they're worried about the heart rate, and I'm sitting there. They're going through like what they want to do, and they're like, well, you could have forceps, you could have a VBAC or a C-section. She's like, I don't want to do a C-section, like the. And I was sitting there like kind of like, I don't want forceps, I don't want a VBAC because we're in special ed. And I remember my first couple years of teaching, a lot of the kids, I taught like a non-categorical class, a lot of the kids had really traumatic births. And I remember things like that happening.
What's a VBAC? It's like a vacuum?
Yeah, like they vacuum the baby out of you.
That's, oh my God.
Terrifying.
I just instantly went to Spaceballs. Yeah. The vacuum's in the sky and it like sucks all the dirt out.
So I'm freaking out because I'm like, I don't want any of these options, and the doctor just did not want to do a C-section. And I don't know, like, I don't know, like, am I physically meant to have a baby come out of me? Like, I don't know. So then I weirdly was like, you know what? Like when my partner would talk, my baby would get like super excited. So I was like, yeah, I'm like in another world. Okay. So I'm like, you have to start talking because it's going to get the baby's heart rate up. You got to start talking. Just talk about anything. And at the time, this was like 4 years ago or 3 years ago, he was like obsessed with Bitcoin. So I was like, talk about Bitcoin. And they're looking at me like I'm a nut, you know? And he's like, what? I'm not. Like, he's kind of like embarrassed in this moment, which is kind of funny because he wasn't someone who would ever be embarrassed. Yeah. So then he starts talking, and then all of a sudden her heart rate goes up and is like totally normal. But I forgot. In the meantime, they'd given me like 2 rounds of Pitocin to get her out.
Oh, that's the worst.
What's that? The shit that induces you?
Yes.
Okay,
so that is, but I was already, by that point, you're on it. By that point, I was already like 10 centimeters. So they like then give me 2 things of Pitocin. They're only supposed to give me 1. They give me 2. So then I'm like, they're like, you're ready to push. So I'm like, oh my God, like, okay, you know? Yeah. So I can't feel anything, like numb as can be. Like, and am I pushing? Yeah, exactly. No, seriously, like you don't really know. Like, and so again, like not prepared, not knowing, not having a partner to like coach me through this. He had my leg like all the way back because I couldn't feel anything. So,
your partner did?
Yeah.
He's living out some weird fucking dreams. What was happening?
Hey, he's like, this was how she was made.
Yeah.
This is how she's coming out.
Perfect. So then the doctor's like, that's great. And I'm sitting there, I don't know. You know, I didn't realize at the time, like, how the positioning, like there's so much that like you really don't know. And I remember when I first went in, they were like, do you want a doula or a midwife, or do you want a doctor? And I was thinking, I'm having a C-section. I don't want like a midwife.
Yeah.
You know? No, like, you know, like Sage is not going to help me in this situation. And I didn't know, you know.
Fuck your crystals right
now.
Exactly. Get this baby out of me.
Seriously. Yeah. So I was like, no. So, I have the baby, she like comes out. Oh, and in the meantime, so that because they're worried about the heart rate, they call in like the whole NICU team. So I'm kind of freaking out. Like I'm like, is something wrong with the baby? Because that to me is like the scariest thing. Like something's wrong with her baby.
And a fucking team at that.
And a team at that. 12 nurses standing at the end of the bed just waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
Exactly. So she comes out. And it's weird because a lot of it's super fuzzy for me, and like looking back, it took me like months of like piecing together like puzzle pieces. Like even the leg thing, like I didn't think about that till like months later when I was like researching like how to position yourself, and then, like that can increase tearing and like all.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so yeah. So
you said tear. She said tear, everybody.
Know,
we got the first tear of the episode.
Just
you wait.
I'm scared as fuck.
So I'm like in another, I don't know if it was the same for you, but for me, I was like in another world.
Yeah.
Like here I have this baby. I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. We didn't know the sex.
Yeah.
So at first they're like, he's here. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a boy. And then they're like, wait, it's a girl. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a girl. And then they put her on my chest and I'm like, oh my God, this is like amazing. You know, like I'm looking at all her fingers and toes and like all this stuff. And like, it's surreal. Like, it's like, to me, it was like miraculous. Like, again, I couldn't feel anything. I didn't know what was going on, like, south the border. So, like, I didn't really know. And I'm just so in it, and, like, watching her, like, they're, like, literally, it's so natural. So, like, as soon as she was on my chest, like, skin to skin, she's, like, rooting for my breast and, like, getting, like, the nutrients of, like, her first, like, feeding or whatever. I can't remember the term.
Colostrum.
Thank you.
What's it called?
Colostrum.
So it's called like liquid gold, basically, which is like really important for just like their overall.
A different color than milk.
Yeah. So it starts off that, because then your milk comes in.
Yeah.
That's also
sucks.
fun. That no one tells you about.
Sure.
So I'm just kind of in it, like just and they're checking her all out to make sure she's okay. And then like kind of like in this weird, again, like it feels like it was like very out of body, but like I'm realizing there's like 20 people like all over here. There is like blood everywhere, but I'm still not like piecing it together. And like my partner's like next to me and is like needing oxygen, which I'm like, what the heck? Like this guy
was?
Yeah.
Girl, you little
but I
bitch,
didn't. Yeah, exactly. So I didn't have context for the situation, but then they're like, you need to sit down, sir, and like he's getting oxygen. So again, like I don't really know. Then they keep me in the delivery room like a while, and I black out, like I don't even know what happened.
Yeah.
And then at the time, like I wake up and you know they're giving me like all this extra like attention and care, and my cousin comes to visit, and she was like, afterwards she was like, the smell in there was like insane, like it was so obvious something really bad had happened.
Oh my gosh.
So I had, again, I didn't know this until later, but like what had happened is I had 3rd degree tearing, which is like 4th is the worst, where it's like I had 3rd, but like it was like just like almost 4th. And then she tore me internally bilaterally, so like she just like ripped out of me, and then I lost like 40% of my blood. So like I basically was like bleeding out, like, which I didn't fully realize, which is why he was gonna pass out, because he's watching me like go
bleed to death.
Yeah. So so then they take me into my room. And they tell me, like, you know, I didn't know about the bilateral tearing till later when I had to, like, extend my disability.
Yeah.
No, well,
So like inside your uterus?
Yeah, so, like, she, like, completely all the way through, like, tore me. Yeah.
She was pissed.
Yeah. I know.
You know, like, all of two, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's, like, exactly, like, her personality.
Yeah.
So then I was there for, like, 3 or 4 days, but what was really frustrating was that like I felt like I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have an advocate, like my partner was clueless on so much, and so like I didn't realize, like I just knew I had 3rd-degree tearing, and I was like, dude, I am in so much pain. I had a catheter the whole time, and they kept talking to me about blood transfusions, and I'm like, what? You know, like I do not want someone else's blood. I don't know anything, you know, but I'm like, I just don't want to do this, like if I don't have to.
Yeah.
And so then I was like day 3 or 2, and they were like, no, like you really, like someone finally sat me down. One of the doctors, the doctor who delivered her actually, was like, no, you need them, because like you're not going to get your blood supply back for months. Like it's not something where you just go eat a kale salad and like you're back, your iron
back, baby.
Yeah, you're just laid up for like 40% of your blood. So then I was like, okay, so I had to have 2 blood transfusions, and then like immediately I started to feel like better, which was nice. But then like I still hadn't even gone to the bathroom. I hadn't stood up, like I hadn't done anything yet. And so like going to the bathroom for the first time is like
scary.
Giving birth again. Like it's like
why do we have children?
Terrifying.
The first poop is the absolute.
Yeah.
Are you
So
serious?
it's terrifying, and they give you all this medication too. So like, you know, you're on this like whatever. Anyway, so then there's that, and then that same night, so I had 2 blood transfusions. I finally walked to the bathroom with a walker, you know, and I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, how am I going to go home and do this? And then my milk came, and it was so funny because I hadn't cried yet, like through most of this. But then...
Well, yeah, you were fucking clueless.
Clueless.
What's happening?
Then my partner had like a bag of like clothes or something, like nothing heavy. Dropped it on my foot on accident. Like dropped it on my foot.
He needs to really
enough.
get his shit together though. Like
This is very true. But he dropped it on my foot. I just started bawling because like my milk and it was like that for some reason was like the kicker.
It'd be like that though. I don't give a shit. My mom used to be like, wash the dishes. I'd be like, what?
Exactly.
And I was on my period.
I was a hot mess, and then I came home, and then it took me again like so much time to kind of realize like what had actually happened. Where, you know, I was like really intensively bleeding for a long time. I really couldn't walk without like intensive pain meds till like I had her in end of March, and it was June. I remember June 5th was like the first time I wasn't in pain. So I'd be like up at night, like researching like what is this? And it was that what we were talking about where I would say to people like, I'm in so much pain. I had 3rd-degree tearing. They're like, oh honey, it does really hurt, but you're going to get better. Every day is going to get better. And I was
toxic positivity, like,
this
fuck
isn't
you.
getting better. Well, and they didn't know it because I didn't know like what I was really going through. So I was like right as soon as I had her, it was like, oh, like there's Katie, you know, like so, you're so bloated for so long and everything, and I was like, oh, there she is. But then like over time, it was like I was just like atrophying basically, like because I wasn't really walking or doing anything. And I remember like, I don't know if that was your experience, but like I'd have my window where I would take like the Oxy, which I had never really done like anything other than like weed or whatever. And like I'd be like, oh my God, I'm gonna go clean the garage. Or like I'm gonna go do it. Like I don't know what happens. Exactly. I was like, I don't know what happens to me, but like 6 p.m. like I'm just like ready to do all this stuff. And I remember my partner being like, dude, because you're on drugs. Like stop. Like this is
you're
not
fucking high as shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is not you like having like a wave of energy. Like you need to slow down. You know. But anyway, it just went on for so long trying to figure out what was going on. And then finally, I was always in like my OB's like office, you know, because it'd be like, this is happening. And I would have people like she'd have someone with her, you know, and it'd be like, oh my God, you know, like, whoa, like,
that's
this
promising.
is crazy. And I'm just sitting there like,
Always feels good.
Yeah.
always feels good. And I'm like, okay, so not only am I like a new mom, but like, now, like, am I gonna walk again? Like, am I gonna pee again? Like, well, I definitely was gonna pee again, but like, control my pee. Am I like all these things? Am I gonna have sex again? Like, am I a woman? Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So you go through like this whole crazy thing, and then I had to go to a specialist because like I was someone who in this process was like I just like couldn't control my farts.
This is the best.
Sounds like you normally.
Really fun. So I couldn't control my farts, and I was like definitely the girl. I was like, oh, I don't fart, like I don't poop, like no, you know. And then it would be like, here's a house full of people, and I'm like standing up, like just like. Hello. And I would say like I can't control my farts. Like I'm really, really sorry. I was so embarrassed, but like it was just so like whatever. So anyway, I'm thinking again like maybe this is normal. Like I don't know what's normal. And then finally my doctor's like, that's not normal. You gotta go to like a specialist. And that was really terrifying because
Yeah, maybe I need to go to
you're
a
like, because you're like, I was walking in, I'm like, are they gonna tell me like I can't ever have kids again? Like,
Yeah.
to what extent like was this injury? Because like again, I still didn't feel like I had good information about what happened to me. So the specialist was like, yeah, you need physical therapy and also like a kind of acupunctural therapy where it's like you go in and they like stick needles in your ankles and then turn on a stimulator to like correct nerve damage. So here I am, like in the hot ass summer, with a baby, and I'm driving to Roseville, and both my appointments were in Roseville at the time, like multiple times a week, going to these appointments, trying to like breastfeed her before I'd have the appointment so she'd fall asleep. And
Yeah.
you know, I remember being on the table with a physical therapist, and when they do that, they like put like I don't even know, like something in you to like gauge, like, are you like, do you have muscle, like what is that, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, and they're like, you gotta relax, you know, and I'm like breastfeeding, like I'm like, I can't, like, I don't know what's happening down there, like I'm like so disconnected, like am I squeezing, like and it's like, I don't know. So it was this whole process, that was awful. And then it was like 9 months postpartum, I had to do where I was going to getting like the stimulation thing for nerve damage, and that would be really hard because I'd be like, I was back at school, I was back at work, here I gotta go leave to go do this kind of stuff, and it was, you know, I feel like and even with the physical therapy kind of stuff too, what was really hard is I feel like I couldn't take it as seriously as I would have in a normal situation because I'd never been through any sort of trauma like that at all, but I couldn't deal with that and really like follow up on the care that I needed, you know, to do that stuff. And I should say, so the reason why I was able to walk again, I had granulation tissue that had like built over, so one of like the sutures. So since I had torn so much, I had so many stitches. And basically like one of the stitches like grew over like skin and blood vessels and stuff. So like every time I would walk, it would be like excruciating pain of like rubbing against my skin. So like what would happen is like I would take my pain meds, have like, and then they cut me off oxy after a while. So like I was on like the intensive
my blood stuff.
I know, I was like, I get it now, you know, like, I had like
Yeah.
such a new perspective on chronic pain,
Yeah.
and I had such a new perspective on like wanting just to feel good, and so so I had to go in and have that surgically removed. And then also like, so because I had bilateral tearing scar tissue that had like started to already build up, and scar tissue can be really painful if you're not like massaging it. So I had to have that removed, and that was what was amazing though, is like that procedure, like then I could walk, and it was like, like I forgot like what this felt like to just not be in pain or have my life revolve around pain, because I would take my pain meds and then it would be like 6 hours that I had where I was like, okay, I can function. But the problem was I'd like, if I pushed myself, I'd pay for it like tenfold. And then when you're also taking care of a baby, you don't have that. Like, you cannot. So I just feel like I was like this weird hermit just trying to survive with my head cut off.
When through
nuts.
all this, did you experience postpartum too?
100%. But so simultaneously, like what happened for me was my mom, 2 weeks before my daughter was born, my mom was diagnosed with postpartum depression. No. My mom was diagnosed with frontal temporal lobe dementia, which is like a really intensive disease that hits before 65.
Is it like aggressive too?
Super aggressive. So it happened like where you're like, something seems off, and then it's like, holy shit, like you need 24-hour care. And usually, like, in that process, when you have someone who's going through it, like, when they actually get the diagnosis, like, it's been months leading up to that. So that's why I was, like, really stressed with my pregnancy. I was driving down to Palo Alto to go to appointments and advocate and, like, do all this stuff and trying to figure out, like, what was going on. So I had that going on. And then also my partner was just, like, MIA, like, didn't get it together, to the point where, like, within the first 7 months of me having her, like he was gone for 5 months on the road and didn't come home once. So it was just me. So like my two biggest support systems were like gone. So I definitely had it, and I remember I even made an appointment twice to like go in and talk about it, because they make you fill out a form every time, and I'm like, oh,
I was like zero.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like for me, like like they were like, you know, just follow up with us if you're feeling more of like, you know, whatever.
What the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah, well, because I'd go in for like those appointments. It wasn't for that. Like you have to go to another doctor appointment.
They would just be checking in to see.
Yeah,
But they only intervene if you mark that you're going to kill yourself. Otherwise, if you're
it
depressed, they don't
wasn't
refer
like,
you to therapy.
They're like, of course you're depressed, you know, and you're like,
What the hell?
Yeah.
Did it impact like your bonding with your daughter afterward?
no.
Or you
So
feel
that
like that was
luckily,
still.
because I was like, it's you and me, girl. And
Yeah.
like and the other thing for me, which was like really terrifying, was when my mom was diagnosed, I obviously understood more about her disease, and her disease is triggered between like 40 and 65. So I was like, holy shit, like this could be me. And I didn't know at the time if it was genetic or not. It can be genetic, but luckily my mom's 1 of 10 and no one else has had any symptoms of anything. So, because they're all in the same age range. So I'm like crossing my fingers, not genetic. But I remember like, I was just like, we're just doing this. Like, and I didn't have anyone else, you know? And I was also like so excited to be a mom. Like that part wasn't hard at all. Like that was, and she was an easy baby. Like she fed, like she slept, like she was great.
Besides literally clawing out of you, but other than
other
that,
than
it was
that,
great.
She actually, most of the
Great.
damage she did was in my room.
It was
Yeah.
internally.
I couldn't walk.
She was
Exactly.
great when she was out.
Yeah, she was awesome. She still is awesome. But for the most part, I feel like that was what was hard for me with the going to the appointments. I'm like, okay, I'm out of sick days, so I'm getting docked pay to leave. I already was doing all this stuff for my physical treatment, which to me was like really important. And I was like, what's a therapist gonna say to me? Like, I am depressed. Like, you can't change my mom has dementia. You can't change that like, my body got ripped in half. I don't know what's gonna happen. You can't change my partner. So I was kind of just like, how am I like, yeah, exactly. So it was kind of just like, I felt really just like, whatever, like I'm just gonna get through it. And I basically just like went through day to day in survival mode. And like now years later, I'm like able to deal with my mom's stuff and like able to deal with my partner's stuff. And I wish that I had been able to do it sooner, but I just don't think like there's the option to, because you just don't have the time. You're exhausted. You know, you're just going through the motions and you're trying to like find this weird balance of like being yourself, but also being a mom and all these things at the same time. And there's no, you know, there aren't systematic things in place. Like if you don't have like your parents or a partner or any of that kind of stuff, like you still have to do your job, you know, like you're still expected to be on time and do all the work that you're supposed to do. And even if your kid's sick, like you still got to get it done. And yeah, you know, like sorry that you're out of money because you had a baby. Like,
Not to mention the hospital bills.
well, so I never got a bill, which makes me think they totally effed up. Because I like look back on all the stuff. I wasn't supposed to get 2 things of Pitocin, like, and I remember.
Rich, girl.
I know, but I was
They're
like,
like-
it was weird because like I would have those conversations. My partner was like, "You gotta go after him," and I was like, "How am I gonna go? Like, I am like barely functioning right now.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I can't
I
even
don't have
like
it in
dye
me.
my hair. Like, how am I gonna go sue Kaiser?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think I never got a bill. I never even got like a description of what happened until later when I had to apply for disability. I tried to extend it. I only got 1 more week. So you get 6 weeks and then I got 1 more week.
Get it together in that one
Yeah,
7
exactly.
days.
Because I was like so ready. And when I was applying for that extra week was when I saw that I had the bilateral tearing, and I was like, no fucking wonder. Like, no wonder I couldn't walk or go through any of these things. Like, of course that was like why this was so much more painful and why people didn't understand, like, when I was saying how hard it was, like, what I was going through. And that was really hard because it was very lonely, like, trying to say, like, I'm in all this pain, and, like, people just didn't get, like, well, I had 5 kids, and, you know.
I think that's such a common thing in general with women that, like, we are intuitive when something's happened in our bodies.
Yeah.
And I've had that happen to me with the medical field where it's like, no, I'm telling you this is what's happening, and you're just crossing all this shit off. I mean, even with, like, the situation recently happened with my roommate, like, who's to say that it actually is acid reflux, you know?
Right.
Like, I think it's just, like, we tell these people in the medical field what's going on, and they don't believe us. It's like, how the fuck are you going to tell me about my body?
Yeah. Well, even just family, like, because, you know, like, all my aunts had kids and stuff, and they'd, like, check in and stuff, and I'd, like, tell them what was going on, but they, like, still didn't get like what it was, because I didn't either, you know, so I didn't know like how to explain what was actually happening to me, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And it was like these little pieces coming together where I'm like, oh, that's why, like, that probably didn't help with the tearing, because my leg was like all the way back, or like or you know, like I had 2 things of Pitocin, or like I probably should have had a C-section. And looking back, I'm like, and I tell my friends now, which I mean, COVID you probably can't, but like have another person in the room that isn't invested, that isn't your partner, who's like watching you go through this, and that's not you, because you can't like advocate for yourself the same as like.
Well, you were just completely out of your mind too. Like,
yeah.
So was he.
You can't really focus either on like everything going on. You're just your body is like
get
in
this
its own thing.
out.
Yeah, it's probably this like mind body fuck.
It is. It's insane. It's not a fuck. It's just like it's just like you go into this zone. Like it's like, and even like
you're next to yourself. I agree with you. 100%.
Yeah,
it's almost like you're watching it from the outside in.
100%. Like it's out of body, because it's like the level of pain, discomfort, like what is going on is like nuts.
If you were in your body, you probably wouldn't have been able to function.
Yeah.
So I think
so
your
it's
mind
like
kind of blocks it.
Like it's nuts.
It's like when women have the natural birth and they like do the meditation to like help them with the pain. Like they definitely have like out of body experiences.
Yeah.
That is so nuts.
Yeah. It is super nuts.
I have 3 questions.
Okay.
One is
Go.
immature, because that's my.
It's
That's
okay.
just how it works.
I don't fart
Can you-
uncontrollably now. Disclaimer.
For everybody watching this,
Everybody,
she's single and has her farts under control.
I don't actually just fart. all the
This
time.
episode is titled "Uncontrollable Farts." Brought to you by. So, do you know if you can have another pregnancy?
So I can't. That is totally fine. The thing would be that I would have a C-section if I were to ever have another kid, which I probably not. But
So
if I
even
were
with
to-
the scar tissue in the uterus, like because you had the procedure to like have that removed or whatever.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, honestly, like it would probably be like what I've seen with friends that have had miscarriages. Like I don't know, like if I were to have miscarriages, like if that would be like, oh, you'd have to go through that process first to realize like maybe there is something.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the specialist said no, but I should have a C-section, because what happens is if I were to go through that again, I would not recover. So like that, I would just be like one open hole with, you know, a freaking.
Jesus Christ. I'm terrified.
No biggie. Just
So they
one
were just
open
like,
hole.
C-section is the way to go. And I was like, fuck you. I knew that from the get-go. But anyway, so.
Do you have a desire to have more children?
I would love to have more kids, but I'm 38. I'm single. I have like a million other things going on.
You're like,
so
it happened.
it's like, I know. So I would love to have more kids, but at the same time, I'm like, after going through what I went through, like, it's got to be right. Like, I'm not going to wing it. Or not that I was winging it before, but like, just realizing, like, I just could never go through that again. Like, I'd have to have, like, way more support in my life. Yeah.
My immature question. The stimulation therapy. Was that enjoyable at all?
Like a
So
cat.
the physical therapy? No. Like, that was just, like, we're putting something
Well,
in.
you had
The
like nerve
stimulation-
things.
She
Okay,
immediately
but that's
pictured a
on my
vibrator on your
ankles.
clit.
Those around your ankles?
That was on my ankles. So, like...
Was it enjoyable?
No, it wasn't. It was, like, just... It was weird because it's, it's basically like having, you have needles in your ankles, and then it's, like, just, like, kind of shaking and, like, pushing. What was really funny, where I was just like, fuck you, universe, was, like, everyone else that was in there was, like, a 60-year-old incontinent grandma. And I was like,
You probably would have got some good recipes.
so pissed. Yeah, right? I was, like, so pissed because you're sitting there like, oh, you too? And I'm like, yeah. Like,
I'm 35.
yeah. So that was really funny. But no, it didn't. What was weird about it was that, like, it's just all connected, like, realizing, like, whatever is in my ankle triggers. And I also figured out, like, months later, too, like, your scar tissue, like, I didn't know this for a long time, but your scar tissue, like, your muscles in that area, like, go all the way down my thigh. So it's, like, there's really tightness stuff where it's, like, you have to, like, massage that, which it's weird that, like, that's all connected. Like, it goes all the way, like, your whole body. It's, like, totally.
It's crazy because you can.
nuts.
I mean, I'll get like weird headaches sometimes. There's like something way down here that I need to rub. I'm like, dude, it's crazy how everything's
Connected.
Just like,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, my last question for now is so now your daughter's 4 or 5, right?
She's about to be 4.
4.
Yeah.
are you comfortable having sex at this point?
Yeah, no.
Is that fearful?
Okay,
I would be scared to
no.
have anything in
So
or
I was
out of there.
legit terrified, and my best friend
I
had had
am
a baby like a year before, and she was like, it sucks until like 6 months postpartum.
Okay.
So first of all, and I don't know if that was your experience, but I went in at 6 weeks when they're like signing up disabilities or talking about the disability stuff, and they're like, you can go have sex, and I was like, are you fucking nuts?
Yeah.
I can't even
put myself back in this situation.
Are you kidding me? You know, I was like, I'm like in so much pain. I can't walk. I'm bleeding. Like, are you crazy? And I feel like, again, it's that, like, they're not really listening, or like it's just this routine, and it feels like it, again, very systemic of like, we just got to get them out, you know, like you had your kid, like, and they don't even see you till you're 6 weeks postpartum.
Yeah.
So you usually don't get as many visits as I had to like lead up to that.
Yeah.
Usually it's like, wait till 6 weeks and then we'll see you, and that's
Yeah.
it. So like you're going through all this stuff, like I don't know if this is normal, like what.
Oh my God,
But no,
I have
so
my doctor's number on speed dial.
Yeah.
yeah,
for real.
yeah. No, advice nurse was like, ding-a-ding. And so when it was about 6 months postpartum, where I was like, all right, like,
Yeah.
we're gonna get that lube.
Yeah.
Was that scary as shit the first time?
Terrifying.
Do you feel like had sex in a KY
Terrifying.
jelly bath?
I'm
Yeah,
like so
no,
scared right now for you
100%.
in your life.
No, so, and the thing is like, it's weird because it's like, again, when you're mentally going through it, you're like, am I ever, like, you know, I was just like, this is never going to be part of my life, like, whatever. And then, like, you just, it's kind of like a new normal. Like, yeah, it's like different. It's not, I'm not 22 anymore.
Yeah.
I did have a kid, but at the same time, it's like not like bad. So it's just different. It's just not exactly the same, but it's not bad. Yeah.
That's so scary.
Thank you
Okay.
for answering my questions.
Yeah. Thank you for asking my clit stimulator questions. Oh, your ankles. Melissa's mind went straight. Yeah.
I thought it was like
I'm over there having like weird orgasms.
With the 65-year-old women, you guys are like, as somebody brought a platter. Somebody brought up like a brownie platter. You're like, oh shit.
I didn't know this was a group simulation project. I didn't know what's going on.
All right, Allison.
Okay, you're up.
Oh,
Big
boy.
hitter. Big hitters.
I mean,
Did
her
you also
story
have
is-
uncontrollable farts?
No. Yes, but no. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of unavoidable. So I've been pregnant 3 times and I've had 2 births. My first one I thought was traumatic until I had my second one.
He came in like, bitch.
He was like, hold my
thought
beer.
that was
Yeah, hold my beer.
So
God.
I was that person that had been around people that have had kids a lot. And I actually got to see a birth in the room, like in person with my best friend. And her daughter, whose birth I witnessed, just turned 8 yesterday. So
Happy
it's
birthday.
been some time, and I pretty much felt like I helped raise her kids because they lived down the street from me. I was always over there.
Yeah.
So I had a good idea of like what childbirth was like, what postpartum was like, because she battled with major postpartum depression and like the healing and all of the weird stuff that can go wrong. Did all the research, all the crunchy granola stuff that society made me feel pressured to do. And then I loved being pregnant with my firstborn. I looked at my husband. I was like, I'm going to have 5 kids if this is what it's like. And he was like, He was like, let's just get through one first.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is great. Like, I didn't gain a lot of weight, and I felt good. And I just had, like, sciatic issues, so I started limping towards the end. But otherwise, I was, like, A-okay.
Yeah.
And so on the day before my due date, the best way to get a baby out is the way you get it in. And I was like, get this baby out of me. And my husband was like, what? Okay. I'm never going to show my family this podcast, by the way.
So pretty sure they know you guys had sex at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't need to know the details. So as I'm like switching positions with my husband, and I'm like, this is uncomfortable, I was like, oh, I just peed on you. And he goes, that's okay. It's fine. It's normal. And I'm like, no, it's not normal. And then it just went whoosh all over him. My water broke. All over.
That is the
and I was
best
like
feeling.
running down the hallway,
Yeah.
going to go
Squirter.
stand. Gonna go stand in the shower, and I'm like, bring me my phone. My water's still just like breaking. And I called
It's
my
like a
mom.
long process?
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, mine wasn't like a large, like, one and done. It was like a big gush at the first, like, beginning, and then
Yeah.
it was like a slow trickle the rest of the time. It just felt like you were peeing yourself for at least like 5 minutes.
Oh my
I didn't
gosh.
feel mine because I was like numb, but yeah,
Yeah.
it happened while I was numb.
So I'm standing in the shower, and I call my mom and tell her my water just broke. And mind you, I had been up since like 4 a.m. the day before because I worked up until 2 days before I had my son. So
Oh
I was like at work,
She's like on her feet.
hella tired. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to go have a baby and I'm tired. And so called my mom. I had a circus room full of people. I had my mom, my mother-in-law, my best friend, my sister. I invited both my husband's sisters in the room, but they lived in LA and they weren't going to make it. Like, I just didn't care.
Damn, girl.
After witnessing like a birth on my own, I wanted everyone to have that experience of seeing like someone that they love come in and take their first breath, because it's magical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is magic. It's straight magic.
It
Just
is
watching
magic.
them
I mean,
after
they
they
rip your whole
slap
inside
their
your
little
body
backs and they go,
Yeah.
and it's like all is well. So I was refusing an epidural because I am stubborn Italian lady. And then I went from 3 to 8 in about a half an hour. And then I was sitting there and I was like, okay, this is starting to hurt a little. And I was like, can I just get the epidural? Because I started getting scared.
Yeah.
Started getting scared. And my friend was like, just hold off as long as you can.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. So I got it. By the time they gave me the epidural, I was at 10. And they're like, you can have it up until you're pushing as long as you can sit still. And I was like, oh, I will not move. And I sat there and didn't move. And they're like, you? I don't know how you did that. I was like, let's do this. And
Wait, what do
then
you need to be at?
10,
Ten.
right?
you can,
10,
as long
right?
as you are not pushing and you can sit still, they will give you an epidural up until you're ready to push.
Oh, shit.
You're asking how
Yeah, like what
dilated?
Yeah.
10, right? To
10,
have the baby?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about anything.
It's like
Okay.
pushing a watermelon out of a lemon. So I get the epidural and I'm like numb up to my cheeks.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
gosh.
What is this? And so then they're like, okay, it's time to start pushing. And I'm like, I can't tell if I'm pushing. Like,
Yeah.
I can't feel anything. Like,
Yeah.
how are you supposed to squeeze muscles that you can't feel? So I'm like sitting there and they're like, okay, a contraction's coming, because you can watch it on the machine and it'll show you. And then they're like, okay, push. And everyone in the room had a job. Like, 2 people had legs. 1 person had my head. Zach was standing by the other side of me, trying not to faint.
It's bitch ass boys.
Yeah.
Well, he was
They can't
weaning
handle
from
it.
his anxiety medication at the time, so he was not
100%.
100%. He was going through like withdrawals of his anxiety medicine, so we were
yeah.
both ill for like 9 months together.
Yeah.
Aw.
And I just remember I was like, I can't. I pushed for 5 hours, and they're like, okay, the heart rate's dropping. Do you want to try a vacuum or a C-section? And I was like, I am not having a C-section. I was like adamant about it, so I was
Yeah.
like, let's do
That's
the
so
vacuum. So they
Tell you that.
did. They're like, we can only do 2 attempts, and then after that you have to have a C-section. So they did 2, failed. And I remember they're like, hey, so it's time to have a C-section. And I threw my blankets over my head and I crawled under there and I was just like sobbing.
Aw.
And then my best friend crawled under the blanket and was talking to me. And then the doctor crawled on the other side. And we were like in this little tent and I didn't want anyone else to look at me. And I was just like sobbing. And they're like, it's going to be fine either way. Like, this baby's coming out. You get to meet
Yeah.
your son soon. So they wheel me in and then they let Zach and my mom both come into the operating room, which is rare. Normally they only let 1 person.
Yeah.
So they had already started cutting me while Zach and my mom were like suiting up. And then they get in there and I just remember I was like shaking. I couldn't like stop shaking because of all the meds, because they really pump you full.
Yeah.
And I was so tired at this point. It was like 4 a.m. at that point.
Oh my gosh.
And I just, all of a sudden, I feel this thing on my chest and I open my eyes and there's my son.
Oh, wow.
Oh damn.
And he was great and healthy. And I look over and my mom's like leaning over the curtain to look. And the lady goes, did you take a picture? And mom's like, no. And she put her phone back in. My mom took pictures of my C-section of what I looked like. With, like,
Oh, God.
My mom would
everything
do that
out.
too.
Your mom would 100%.
And she's like, do you want to
will.
see? And I was like, no. So
It's
I
all
thought,
framed in your mom's house. You're like, what the fuck?
Your mom
I
literally
thought that
saw
was
your
a
insides.
traumatic birth for me. I couldn't get up on my own to like go get my son in the middle of the night, like, because my stitches would rupture.
Yeah.
And so my husband would like have to help me and get up and stuff. And little did I know what like a real traumatic birth would be like. So with my second born, I had him 2 weeks before California shut down from COVID.
Ugh.
Luckily, I still got to have everyone in the room and have like a normal birth experience. I had 6 or 7 people in the room.
Jeez. Your
And-
births are parties.
So, yeah.
Who's bringing the chips and dip?
Pretty much. And then my sister's fiance even accidentally walked into the room at the time, and I was like, get out! Like, I was
like that
ready to
scene
go
from Knocked
pushing,
Up.
and he was like, ah! And all the nurses were like rushing to the door to get him out, and I like, that took me instantly like out of my zone because I was like pushing and ready. So with my firstborn, I went into the doctor on my due date, and he was like, have you been having any contractions at all? And I was like, nope. He's like, well, you're dilated to almost 7.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, what? And so he's like, you're gonna go to the hospital right now and have a baby.
He's all, you're dead inside.
He was a little worried.
You.
He was a little worried. He's like, you sure you're okay? I was like, yeah, I'm good. So that right there put a seed in my head, like, I'm gonna dominate this birth. Yeah, if I haven't felt it so far. And he calls the hospital and arranges for us, and I was like, I'm hungry. So we stop, and we got Noah's bagels. Don't eat before birth.
Oh.
So I ate a bagel on the way to the hospital, called our family and friends. We went to our house and got the bag. And then I delivered at Kaiser and Roseville, so we had to make the journey from, like, where we are there.
Yeah.
And I get there, and they're like, okay, so we're going to break your water. Do you want your epidural before or after? And my best friend was there already at the time, and she's like, just wait until after. You were fine with Hunter until, like, I got my epidural in between, like, really late. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll wait. And so they come in with this thing that looks like just a hook, and they put it in there, and they pop your water. And it felt like you just, like, pee yourself. And I was like, okay, this is fine. And then as soon as all the water drained out, it hit me. Like, I just, like, bam. And I just remember I was, like, trying to crawl out of my body. I was like, ah! And I forgot how to breathe.
Yeah.
And my husband's like, okay, breathe. And I'm like, I don't, because we didn't do birthing classes with my second one. I was like, I don't fucking remember how. I don't remember. And I was, like, I was on the bed, like, crawling away from my contractions, like, trying to get away from it. And the nurse is, like, holding me. She's like, breathe. And I'm like, someone help me. Someone. I'm, like, yelling at everyone in the room.
Yeah.
And so I was like, give me a fucking
Do you
epidural.
have oxygen on you?
No. I requested the epidural within 2 minutes of them breaking my water. And they were like, okay, it'll take them like 20 minutes to get here. I was like, faster! Faster!
Yeah.
I was like screaming. I was crawling out of the bed. And they're like, you have to stop. And I was like, so I like sat on a medicine ball and I was like bouncing. And I'm like, this sucks. This sucks. And then every contraction, I couldn't remember how to breathe. And then they gave me the epidural. And this time it didn't work. I could still feel my contractions.
Wow.
So I could actually feel me pushing though, which was night and day versus my first labor. So he would come out a little bit and then pull back up. Come out a little bit and then pull back up.
He really was holding my beer.
Yeah. And I demanded to do a VBAC with this one. I wanted to do a vaginal birth.
Yeah.
It's called a VBAC, vaginal birth after cesarean.
Yeah.
Because I was crunchy granola again. And so I was adamant about no C-section unless it was like required. So I was like, can I stand up? Because his heart rate started slowing. They're like, no, you have an epidural. And I was like, I can move my legs. And I was like moving my legs. They're like, we're not sure how you're doing that, but no, you can't get up. And I was like, I feel like I need to stand or squat. Like I have arm strength. Can I hold onto like a pull bar? They're like, absolutely not. You're stuck in this position. And the position they have you in is not ideal for birthing. Like humans are meant to give birth standing up.
Yeah.
Or on all fours. The like hospital bed angle is the worst. And so
how come they
It's
don't let
just
you do
weird
that?
They don't like that isn't like something you're told, you know? Like
I knew about it.
Yeah, but
that's
it's
the
not
part
like
of having an epidural.
right.
Why
and
don't they allow you to do that?
Or why don't they create a bed that is more suitable for like birthing?
Who the fuck do we need to talk to?
Come on.
If you don't get an epidural, they had like water baths you could use. They have like squat bars you can hold on to. You can lean over the edge of a bed. You can sit on a medicine ball. You have all these options. But once you get an epidural,
You just have to lay
you're
there.
stuck on the bed.
Yeah.
But I don't think I didn't know that. Like I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I also didn't realize like me just laying there is like not the best way to like
You
do that.
think that
You know.
they would tell you that?
Yeah.
Like really get it into your mind. You know.
Yeah, no. I was well aware this round. I was like, all right, here we go, epidural. They also freaked me out into getting it because they're like, if you have to have a C-section, we're going to knock you out. You're not going to be awake because it won't be fast enough. But if you have an epidural, then we just increase it and we can go in immediately, which scared me because I didn't want to be unconscious on an operating table for the birth of my child.
Yeah, of course not.
So I pushed with Henry for about 5 hours, and the doctor was like, okay, we're going to vacuum him. And I was like, no, I don't want to vacuum, but they did it once and it made some progress. And I was like, okay, can I just push? And he's like, okay, one more push and you'll get him. And I just remember looking down and seeing the doctor, like this big buff guy, he just like flexed and pulled him, didn't even let me push. And all of a sudden I remember I just closed my eyes at that point. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to push a few more times. And then I felt the baby on my chest and I was like, wait, he's out? And they're like, yeah, he's a boy, he's healthy, he's fine.
Yeah.
And like you, I had a 3rd-degree tear with a minor lateral tear inside. I couldn't get up out of the hospital bed on my own for 3 days. I had to have a horde of nurses come and help me up. I needed a walker. It was all pretty damn terrifying comparing to like what my first labor was. Like I just walked around with a pillow if I had to sneeze, like so my stitches wouldn't rip. But like I couldn't walk with Henry without pain for about 9 months.
Jeez.
It's just every birth is so different, and I think you can have all of these birth plans in your head, but I think you can't call it a birth plan. I think you're doing a disservice to your body because your body is going to do what it wants. And more importantly, that baby is going to do what it wants.
Yeah.
I think having a birth goal is a good thing.
Yeah.
Just being like, this
Yeah.
is my goal. But the women that try to stick to it, it does no good for you. It puts too much pressure on you, and
Yeah.
it
Because you're not able to like process it so fast that you wouldn't be able to like sit with like, oh, I'm gonna actually have a C-section. Like to you that was like so devastating because you don't have the time. Like whereas
Well,
if
they don't give you the time.
And exactly, and if they had like front loaded, you know, and it'd been like, look, like these are your options in
Yeah.
advance. And the other thing that was hard that I found with Kaiser, like you don't know your doctor that's delivering your baby. So you have your OB that's been your like regular person through everything.
they're not
who
the
knows
one.
all of
Yeah.
your stuff. And then you go and it's like whoever's on the clock in that time.
Yeah.
And it's like a rotating 4 doctors, I think it is.
Why
So,
does Kaiser do that?
I don't know, and I don't know if it's across
Every
the
hospital
board.
does.
Yeah.
Do they? It
Yeah,
doesn't
I
make
think
any
it's because
sense to
some
me.
doctors like, you know, like my OB was just like, I don't do that anymore because like I would just get those calls all through the night and like I'm done with that chapter of my life, you know.
Okay.
Which
That
makes sense. Like it's like, oh, you do
Yeah.
have life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's really hard because it's like I didn't have someone where I felt like no, I really would rather have a C-section
Yeah.
than like go through something that I went through. You
Yeah.
know? There was no rapport or relationship or like
Yeah, it's a stranger.
I didn't even think to be like, you're a resident. Like, can I ask
The
like,
doctor
Yeah.
that pulled
another
him out
doctor?
of me
Yeah.
was a resident. I found out afterwards.
Yeah.
And
Do you
I
feel like-
made a request in the beginning that I didn't want any residents, and it said it on the door.
Yeah.
And yet that still happened. Do you
Yep.
feel like him yanking was part of the terror?
Yeah, because he went,
For
oops, I
sure.
ripped you a little.
Oh my
Oh
god.
hell no,
And
bro,
I
we
was
beefing.
I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Beefing
He's
after
like,
that.
you have you minorly ripped, and I was like, okay,
Jeez,
like how
face.
bad? He's like 3rd degree, and I knew that 4th was the
What
worst.
the fuck?
Yeah.
So 4th degree
And he
is
was
where
all
you rip
casual about
all
it?
the way to your butthole,
Yeah.
and they have to sometimes you can have like rectum prolapse, like your rectum can fall out from it, and then if they don't stitch you back together properly, you can have like issues for the rest of your life, like with contamination and infections, like when you poop, it goes
Yeah.
out of your vagina a little bit and things like that. It's like all just.
Yeah, I don't want an amateur anywhere near my butthole.
I mean,
like in any
I
situation.
can't believe he literally was just so casual and said, "Oops, I ripped you a little,"
Yeah.
and
I
then
don't
told
think
you it
people
was fucking
realize,
3rd
like,
degree.
unless you felt it, like people don't get like how painful tearing. Like, you know what I mean? Like I think even my doctor was kind of just like, hey, it's better that you did this than a C-section, and I'm sort of like,
Fuck
bitch,
you.
like, I can't walk.
My husband's getting a vasectomy soon, but if I ever accidentally get pregnant again, I'm doing C-section all the way.
Yeah.
Wait,
all
so
the
I
way.
do know one term because my sister, actually 6 months ago today, my nephew 6 months today, had a baby, and that's her thing. She was like, I do not want to have one hole for my butthole in my vagina. So like she's terrified. It's the only thing she was scared about her whole pregnancy. And then I was like, well, somebody told me to have you get an episiotomy. But then she heard that her doctor's like, it's better if you tear versus cut it because you'll heal better.
You can have more nerve damage if you cut.
Okay. Could you
Yeah.
I can't
Because-
wrap my mind around having one giant hole for my butthole in my vagina.
No.
Your skin tears where it would naturally have like a fault line where if they cut it and then they stitch it back together, that's not where like the surface, like it breaking apart, is meant to be.
Oh, and just you even doing that.
I know,
I just
I
can't.
Dude, I've been tightening my vagina and butthole like for the last 10 minutes.
When I went back at 6 weeks, because I couldn't walk on my own very well I couldn't even stand for more than 5 minutes or sit for more than 5 minutes without being in pain.
Yeah.
And lucky you got pain meds. They gave me Tylenol.
Oh, what's
dang.
Oh, extra strength
My-
though. Don't worry.
I really think
So
they
it
knew
all
that they
stuff
fucked up. Like that's the was my
$80 a
feeling.
pill.
Yeah, because even like there was no wait for getting a specialist. There was no problem getting physical therapy. Like, and I know other people had to go through like way more hoops than I did for that stuff. And then me, it was just like whatever you need. And it,
You
like,
definitely
looking
had
back,
like
I'm
a freaking.
wait a second.
Your chart was flagged
Yeah,
for
my
sure.
chart was definitely like don't ever want her signals. So,
Dude, and I
yeah.
remember you were the one that, this is like off subject of pain, but I remember like obviously talking about like my sister, like I don't know what to say or to do because I've never had children, like, and obviously my only other people in my family are my brothers that have kids. So she like has my mom, so I'd be like asking my friends at work, like blah blah blah. They're like, take every fucking thing in that room, take changing pads, they were like, you pay for it, yeah. Katie was like, you take every single
Everything,
thing, like
yeah.
they pay, you
Every
already,
ice
it's
pack,
paid for.
Yeah, it's yours.
You
Oh
know?
my gosh, those vagina icicle pads, they
Yeah.
were my best friend.
Yeah.
I mean that sounds
game
pleasant
changer.
right now.
Yeah,
I could
no,
use
it's a
one.
game
Summertime
changer.
comes around.
I had to use them for like
After
4
this
months.
morning.
Yeah.
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 My top and bottom stitch healed, but the middle one didn't, so whenever I walked, it would open.
Oh fuck.
Oh,
And I
dude.
was still so swollen after childbirth at 6 weeks, they were like, you're fine to have sex, except for we have to recut you and re-stitch you shut, so you might not be able to have sex right away. And I was like, what? So then COVID happened, and like everything, COVID was already happening. And so I go in for my appointment where they have to recut me. My son wasn't taking a bottle, refused to take a bottle. All he would do is nurse. So I had my mom come with me with the baby, and I was like, I'm just going to nurse him before I go in, and if you could keep him company, because we had our other son at home, so my husband couldn't come with us. My dad finished chemo the day I went into labor, so we were trying to not have him go out in public anywhere at the time.
Yeah, of course.
And so we walk into Kaiser, and they do like the whole screening out in the parking lot. Like, you aren't even allowed in the building. And he's like, is it you being seen or the baby? And I was like, it's me. And he's like, they can't come in. And I started crying, and my mom was like, I have to help her with the baby. He doesn't take a bottle, so I need to go up with her. And he was like, you can't go in. And my mom leans forward and goes, they're going to cut her fucking vagina again? Are you going to let me up or not? And the guy was like, go. Just go. I don't want to hear another word. She just turned into boss mode right there, and I thank her still for that, like, to this day. So I went up, and
excuse me, sir? Let me cut your taint.
Yeah, right.
Fucker.
What are the things called that they do at the pap smears?
Bronze?
The thing that they lift into you to open you.
Oh, I don't. It's like a wrench.
Yeah.
Starts with an S, right?
Scalpel?
Yeah.
No.
Spectacle,
Throwing
something.
S words out, yeah.
Whatever that
Specula?
evil tool is. I was so swollen.
I think that's it.
I think
Spatula?
that's it. Speculum.
Spatula.
I was so swollen they couldn't even put it inside of me without crying.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
And I was like, no, you're not getting that in there. You're not. And the nurse was like, I just at least have to touch the area. Like,
Oh yeah,
I was sobbing.
Yeah.
She was like, just the tip, babe. Just the tip.
Okay,
Okay.
that's why I got this position.
Yeah.
Couldn't even get the tip in.
Yeah.
So they looked at me and they're like, believe it or not, like the stitch healed in the middle after some time, but I had such thick scar tissue that I just couldn't walk, and my nerves healed all weird. It took me almost a year to not feel pain from standing.
And mind you, you're on your feet. Like, I get to say, right? Like, she's a chef.
Yep.
Right? Like, and the boss on top of it, managing a team, like, you know, for a big restaurant, big chain here in Sacramento. So it's like, were you like back at work at that point?
Well, I remember they called me after like 3 months, and they're like, do you want a furlough for like a month or two? And I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Like, give me
Please,
all the
can I?
extra maternity leave, because you get 12 weeks and that's it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I will furlough for 2 more months if you want. Sure, let's gladly do it. And at that point, they were doing like the COVID unemployment too on top of it. So I was like, that's more than my maternity leave pay.
Yep.
So let's do it.
Yeah. That was kind of the dream, having a baby during COVID. Besides all the shit, like, people can't come in, but financially.
Well, nobody would help me.
Yeah.
We were alone on this island with 2 kids all of a sudden, and it was very effed up. And my dad was like going to possibly die. It was just a lot all at once. I remember my in-laws came by once to see the baby, and they stood in the front yard and they had masks, and they wouldn't let us get near, but they wanted to hold him, and we have like pictures of them wearing masks and stuff. But to top it all off on top of that, I had postpartum psychosis. Not even postpartum depression.
So explain
What's the
that.
difference? Yeah.
Sounds scary.
I can't remember the medical term when they were describing it to me, because I wasn't of well mind. I was worried that both of my kids were going to die. I think COVID amplified that.
Oh, yeah.
So every time I had to go to like the grocery store without them, I thought they were going to be dead when I got home, or I thought my husband was going to die, or like every terrible thing that you could think of, I was pretty sure was going to happen. And I also thought that I was going to die. Like, I would be driving and like, what happens if a car hits me right now? Like, who's going to raise my kids with my husband? Like, and it just triggered all these like downward spiral thoughts. And you go into like a really dark, deep place, and I had a really hard time bonding with my second one than I did with my first. It really took me a few months to kind of click with him. Like, I loved him and I knew it, but I didn't feel that joy and happiness every time I looked at him sometimes. Maybe it's also because I was in just so much chronic pain.
Yeah.
And then that on top of it all just made me have mom guilt, and then I felt like I was a terrible person. So yeah, it was a really messed up time having a kid during COVID, and I could not imagine it being my first kid.
Yeah.
Especially when, like, if you have family that were being cautious, that wouldn't like come over and help you.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It does take a village, and
Very isolating.
It's super isolating.
That's the one thing my sister said, that when she talks about her experience, she's like, the trauma that I experienced was not my sister and my mom not being able to be with me because of COVID.
Yeah.
And some people were just like, well, and she's like, no, like my baby was born early. He was in the NICU, and I'm like having to, she's the baby of the family. She's like, I'm having to step up, and I can't have my actual support. Her partner wasn't really a support system. So, like, not having me or my mom to be able to go up there, she's like, that was the most traumatic thing. I was feeling, she was like, I felt like my baby could die at any time. It's my first baby. And I was just like, damn, dude, like, you don't think about, people don't think about, like, what moms go through. Because I know we have, you know, a close friend that's going through something similar to that right now, where it's like, something triggered in her where it's like, what happens if I die? My kids, who's going to take care of my kids? And she has a loving husband with a great relationship, you know? But it's like, people don't talk about that stuff. Just the pressure moms are constantly under.
I still have those thoughts.
Of
like,
course.
it's not as bad. I refuse to medicate myself because I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
But I just kind of let it work through its own, with guidance from my doctors and every day doing those darn checklists. Like, how are you feeling today on a 1 to 3? And it's like, I'm a 1. If there was a 0 on this, I would check a 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's so much pressure. And then it's like, whether you breastfeed or you don't, or if you're working or a stay-at-home mom, like, no matter what choice you make, people are going to shame you.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. I was so grateful for you guys
really
for that.
Uncomfortable. Yeah, it's just uncomfortable because you're like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong? It makes you just question everything. And you have something to lose. Like, it was the first time where I was like, actually, like, this is my kid's future. Like, these decisions are going to impact, like, her down the road. So... that like level of pressure, and then there is of course like the shame, but
or when people tell you what you're supposed to be doing, that's the worst.
Yeah.
I just every
I feel
new
like
mom
I
I meet, you just give advice if they ask. Otherwise, you just listen. It's the best
Well,
thing
you
can
guys
do.
are in very different situations, right? Like we're talking. You live in a house with you have your parents there and your husband, and you are a single mom, right? And like your mom's in a home, and you're taking all that on. You guys have different support systems, you know? So it's like, it's hard. And I don't think that necessarily, I don't want to say matters, but it's hard being a mom regardless, because I do feel like no matter what your support system is, you probably are so isolated.
Yeah.
Because it's like you have a different experience than the other friends that are moms. I'm sure. I mean, I don't even know how many friends you have that are actually moms, you know?
Not a lot.
Yeah.
We were the first out of all of our friends to have kids, and we lost a lot of friends because of it. They were just like, oh, okay, bye.
Yeah.
And now they're all starting to have kids,
Yep.
and they're all still friends together because they're going through it together. I think.
Yeah.
I think having mom friends can be just as good of a support group as like family, if not better.
Yeah.
People that have gone through
future
it.
besties here?
I know, right? I know, for real. Also, though, could you feel like certain mom groups could be worse for your mental health because of all that shame? Like, well, I do
I'm
that
sure,
because I've had people say
Yeah.
that, you know.
I think you have to
Oh,
find
you
your
don't
people and
breastfeed?
stick with them.
Yeah.
For sure.
People
That's crazy.
shamed me for breastfeeding and for how long I breastfed. Like, it's just, it doesn't matter, no matter what spectrum you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Okay, you have to tell a story. She told this fucking story like I think the first time I met her, we were literally sitting in here and just like casually tells this story about going to a masseuse, and I was sitting here like, what? She left, and I was like, Kate, what the fuck, dude? Like, you couldn't warn me? And she's like, okay, so you have to tell the story.
What?
About the shifting.
Oh, my uterus. Yeah, so like you were saying, everything is connected. Currently going to acupuncture to put my uterus back into place. I'm doing
Is it
physical
like
therapy
up by your
for
boobs,
pelvic
or
floor.
where is it right
Oh,
now?
it's actually right here in my throat. Yeah.
It's all over your whole body. But I went to a massage appointment when I was still like healing and could barely walk. And she was like, your uterus is shifted all the way to the left, which is where I tore.
Yeah.
And all my stitches are over there, scar tissue. And she seriously grabbed my uterus through my stomach and was moving it. And she's like slowly pulling it. And I was like, that doesn't feel right. And then she just went pop, and it went back to where it was.
Are you joking?
That's
Like
nuts.
She told me this on like a casual Tuesday. I'm like sitting here on my computer like,
Was
oh.
it like just?
It just felt like someone was like pulling, like if you grab your like fat on your stomach and you pull it, it just feels like that. And then all of a sudden it just like clicked and it stayed.
And it felt good. Like
It felt like I was more balanced and it didn't hurt as much.
Yeah.
It was,
that's
it was
nuts.
weird.
Isn't
I
that
went to work
crazy?
the next day and I was like, I had my uterus moved, and it was the weirdest thing ever. And they were like, what?
I'm always like
Oh, wow.
shocked when I go to my chiropractor or like physical therapy or anything, and they could just like touch, and they're like, "Oh yeah, right there," and I'm like, "Dude, I touch that all the time. What are you feeling? Like,
Yeah,
how do you
yeah.
know that?" Like
Yeah.
they could just feel it,
They
and
just
then like
know.
even when you go to the doctor and they're like going like this, I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't. That feels normal,
Yeah.
I
I
guess.
will say chiropractic was key for me too, because I had pulled my stupidly was like holding the baby and stepped on her toy and like ate it into the splits, which after everything it was just like,
Oh my fucking God,
why?
Katie.
So I pulled my hip flexor, and again here I am alone, so I'm like, I gotta function, you know, like
You're trying to tear every piece of your.
You're trying to never have sex again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, bro. So anyway, so chiropractic though, I was like at wit's end. So I'm like, what else do I do? And my friend was like, go to the chiropractor, and like that was I went like probably 4 times a week, where I would just be like, and it was like, all right.
Damn.
We sold our house when our son was a few months old, and we moved to Folsom, and I was cleaning something, and the cabinet was open behind me, and I fell back between my legs on the cabinet. My mom and my husband were home, and they heard me screaming. I was laying on the floor, like shrieking, like I was just murdered, like bleeding out to death.
This?
I was, right on my stitches.
I don't know why I didn't imagine it that way.
I
did right when she said that, and then I was
visual
like,
is
this is
very-
it.
I
This
fell
is it.
back onto the cabinet, and it hit me right between my legs, and I just fell to the ground immediately, and I was sitting there screaming. And when I get hurt, I get mad if people are like, it's okay. I'm like, that's not me!
Yeah, I'm the same way. Leave me the
And
fuck
my
alone.
mom was like
Yeah.
trying to comfort me, and Zach was trying to comfort me, and I was like, everybody leave me the fuck alone!
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
walked out of the room, and I like went and cried in the garage by myself.
Oh
Yeah.
my God,
And
dude.
your body's just like, I mean, honestly, it's a weird process, because like, I don't know, for me it was like, oh, I'm 6 months, like now I feel like I'm kind of feeling like myself, and then like you hit a year and you're like, oh, now I'm feeling like myself, and then it literally goes on and on for like, even now sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm finally, you know, like, because
Yeah.
she can be more independent, and like I can do a little bit more or whatever, but yeah, your body's so messed up that like any little thing that happens, it's just like you're not healed.
Well, I remember you were
forever.
saying with your brother when you first had Olive too that you're like you couldn't even walk, so your like family was there like
Yeah.
helping you even
Well,
pick
they
her up.
They came over like the day I came home from the hospital, and again, like I didn't know to the extent. And my brother, I was just so grateful, because my brother like picked her up and like changed her diaper, and it was like, oh my God, thank you. They were
Yeah.
only there for a couple hours, but it was just like those little kinds of things, because like, yeah, I would like be doing that in excruciating pain. Like I remember just standing and changing her diaper, like bawling my eyes out, because it was like, this hurts so much, like this isn't normal, you know. And then like, let me just walk back to my bed, like lay here for another, 3
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I know you've been pretty open like recently about going to therapy and finally finding like a therapist you like. Do you feel like that's helped?
Yeah, I
You,
mean,
like,
to be
move
honest, I don't
forward?
think I've dealt with like that part. Like it
Yeah.
was weird. Like last night, I was like, I should like look back and remember like what really happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's definitely helped in terms of just like, because I think for me, the hard part was not being a parent. Like that part, like actually isn't the hard part. The hard part is just dealing with going through that with all the other like things that were simultaneously happening.
Because you guys both had a lot going. I didn't even realize about your dad.
Yeah, so that was like just so isolating and sad and lonely, and it's like, you don't, when you're like 15 and like, oh, I want to be a mom someday, you're not like, I'm gonna be a mom while I'm losing my mom simultaneously, or like
Yes.
those kinds of things, like, or I'm gonna have a partner who's like, just doesn't want to do this right now.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's just not how
He wants
you
to take the
picture
next
it.
couple of years off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like so you don't
I
realize.
tried it. I'm not
Yeah,
that
not-
into
not-
it.
not a huge fan.
Yeah,
I feel like once I put the leg up, I kind of fucked it up. So I kind of quit.
He would have gotten my foot up his ass.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that I think, like there's a grieving of like what you envisioned, of like how having a family was going to be.
Yeah.
And then it's like, that's not how it's played out. So, I mean, therapy's been awesome for me. I highly recommend it. And I do, for my mom, I get it through, my mom's in hospice, so I get it through hospice. And then I've been paying privately to get it to deal with like all the other stuff in my life.
What's the app you've been using? I wanted to talk about that.
BetterHelp.com.
Yeah,
I got it on
yeah.
the radio, like people
Yeah.
just listening to the morning
yeah.
show, and
Yeah.
I was so desperate, like end of this year, where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like this is gonna kill me. My cousin was just diagnosed with like advanced cancer at 40 with like 2 young kids, and I was like, I am not. If I can't control what's gonna happen in my life, but like I can take care of myself,
Yeah.
And I feel like for a long time I didn't have the time, I didn't have the money. Like I was like, how do I go to therapy? Like when? Because even with my mom's, like I end up having to do it. Like I take time off to go visit my mom, and then right after I'll go have an appointment. Because there's no time. Like when I'm driving after picking up my kid from daycare for 45 minutes in the car, like
Yeah.
you can't have a therapy session, and they're not open at 7 p.m. when she's
Yeah.
like getting ready for bed,
Yeah.
like. So what was nice with the BetterHelp was that I have appointments like every Saturday in the morning.
Is
it
it online?
Been a game changer. Yeah, it's on. No, so it's on the phone, or you could do like Zoom or whatever. But what was nice for me, where I was listening to a podcast that was like, after dealing with some of the stuff in my relationship, it was like, you really need someone who understands this. You can't just like walk into any old therapist and like expect them to give you the tools. So what was nice with that app, like you just click on like what you need, and then they find a therapist to like meet your needs. And like, I'm like, it's Saturday, like, what's up, Jeff?
Yeah.
Like, talk about my
Hey,
week,
Jeff.
you know? So this happened, and I don't really know, you know? And
Yeah.
like, it's been like a game changer for me. To also, I mean, it hasn't been so much about like the birth stuff, but just like, the support.
Life after the birth.
Life after, and being a parent, and like, because a big thing for me right now is like, I know there's things that I can't control that are going to affect my daughter, but what can I do to like give her all the tools and the foundation to like help her navigate her life, so when those shitty things happen, like, she's not going to be in a situation, or she'll have the abilities to like take care of herself and you know, make good choices on who her partners are, or like whatever that is. 'Cause that's, I mean, like, the whole point of being a parent, like, you don't want to just be like, okay, I gave birth.
Yeah.
Like,
The hard part's
you
done.
know? Yeah, exactly.
It's actually
like,
just starting. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm in
yeah.
disbelief that like Kaiser doesn't offer any type of therapy. Like, it's crazy to me that
They
nowadays,
do. It's impossible to get in.
Yeah.
that's what I'm
They're
saying.
understaffed
Like,
and overbooked.
which is so crazy, because for me, I have therapy through Kaiser, and I feel like the therapist I've been going to the same lady for like 2 years now. She's cool. I mean, she's like a fucking dinosaur, but like, she's hella cool. It's just as I don't please don't listen to this, Barbara.
And then you put her name out. Sacramento, California.
No, but like, she's hella cool, but at the same time, it's like, I could tell this is like a therapist through my medical. It's not like I compare situations with my friends and their therapists are like amazing, but they're paying $200 a fucking session, which I'm a teacher. I can't afford that.
No.
But it's like, for women going through women going through childbirth, period, like, that should be hand in hand.
Yeah.
Like,
There's
and
so much.
postpartum.
There's so much, because it's like, like, looking back, like, for sure, I was like super depressed, like, but I didn't have the time, I didn't have the money, I didn't have the energy to go get help, because it's like, I also have a full-time job, and I'm a mom.
You're
so
a single
it's like,
mom.
Yeah, so it was just like all these things kind of. I remember too, like, when I went in for my 6th week after having birth and like asking for more time, I was like asking my OB, like, how do other women do this? Like, I cannot walk. Like, luckily I still have, you know, like, paid family leave or whatever, which isn't paid for teachers, which is really fun to realize. But once I had that time, and I luckily, like, with the timeline, I had summer vacation in there too, which was clutch. I didn't think about that when I got pregnant, but it worked out. But there's, like, you deserve as a mom to have so much more time off and like not be worried about your finances. Like, whatever care you need would be like available to you.
Well, and people don't realize, I think, and not just being a teacher, but like for you, right? You're an executive chef. If you were to leave, it's like, I'm trusting that this team is gonna like run this shit, so when I'm back, it's not a shit show. For us, you know, when you go,
God only knows what happens to my
but
classroom.
some son who doesn't give a shit is nobody's invested in this class, and hopefully my team that I've trained is going to make sure my class, when I get back, because I would literally be at home with a new baby, just anxious about like, what is my classroom going to look like when I get home or when I get back to work.
I didn't even like think about that.
I don't
Like, for
think you
you.
think about it until it gets closer to going back to work, and the
I mean,
reality.
I'm like that after winter break. I'm laying there Sunday like,
oh yeah,
these kids are gonna be psychos.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a given. I feel like it's like, but yeah, for me it wasn't like, what I was nervous about was like, when am I gonna pump? Like, how am I gonna do my reports?
Yeah.
Because I remember I would go home because I couldn't get stuff done like I used to, because like, you're pumping during class time like 2 times a day, so it's like your whole day gets thrown off, and then you're already just like, you know, you've been up all night, you're doing all these things, you're still expected to do all this stuff. So I'd like go home and like try and do work at home, and it was just like, oh my God, you know, or trying to even do, because I remember when I came back, one of our coworkers went on maternity leave, and I was like, oh, I'll cover her caseload like a dumbass, you know, and like, because I'm thinking, again, you're like in this transitional of like, you can't do that anymore, and it takes a long time to kind of realize that, until you like epically burn out, pretty much, is like when that happens. And then
Jeez.
you,
Where do
like,
you
learn the hard way.
Where do you pump in a restaurant? Bathroom?
Walk-in baby.
They tried to put me in the fire closet. So when I had my firstborn, I had an office, but it had all glass windows, so I had to like tape up parchment paper to cover it all, and I was pumping in there.
You
But
can still see the silhouette of a titty.
yeah, we all had one office to share, so it impacted everyone if they needed the office. And comments were made like, well, how long are you going to pump for? Because I nursed my firstborn until he was 3.
Yeah.
And then I got pregnant with Henry, and I was like, okay, this hurts. You're getting off my boob now.
Yeah.
And then with my second one, I came back, and they showed me the fire room, and I like looked at it, and there was a dead bug on the floor. And I looked at them, and I was like, is this really where I'm pumping? Where's a plug in here? And they're like, oh, I guess there isn't a plug. And I was like, well, it's not battery powered.
Yeah.
So they had cameras in the office because we have a safe in there. And so I just pumped in the office, and I was like, here's a show if you want it.
Yeah.
Damn.
Don't really care. And they're like, this is how you turn off the cameras in the office. And every time I do it, it wouldn't work. And I was like, whatever, if you want to see my tits, go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had 100 people see me naked by this point after having
that's
birth
true.
Yeah, people are so weird about
Like,
breastfeeding in
this-
public too. Like, you're the one that's sexualizing this. I'm literally feeding my child.
Well,
If you want to
men
stare at
have
these perky
nipples.
ass titties, do it.
Oh, they're
Men
not
have
perky.
nipples.
I was in San Francisco.
It's not
Do
the
it.
same.
I was in San Francisco right before I went back to work, and my other friend had a baby 2 weeks before me, so we went together.
Yeah.
And we were nursing outside, and these 2 women were like, cover up, and I stood up, and I pulled his head off, and I was like, fuck off, and then I put him back on,
Squirted that
and I sat
freaking
back
milk.
down.
I would put some milk in her face.
I will turn into a crazy bitch
Yeah.
if my kids feel threatened. Like, I will rip your
Yes.
face off in a
Also,
heartbeat.
shut up. Why
But
do
also,
you feel
like-
the need to say something?
Why do people have to just
Well, it's
shame
hard
you
'cause
for
it's-
every little thing?
Yeah, because you're like, no, like my kid has to eat right now. Like
They
it's
scream.
Like, it's,
Do you want to
it's
hear
like they're
screaming, or do you want to
they're
be happy?
uncomfortable,
Yeah.
like or whatever it is. It's like I don't have a choice right now. Like they have to eat, but.
Like, my friend was all covered with a blanket, and I was like, who wants to eat with a blanket over their head? Like, this is, I'm sorry to tell society, but this is why our breasts were made. It's to feed children.
Yeah, it's not for you to
and, like,
suck on.
everything else is
Oh, I enjoy that too.
whatever else after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, if you have
It's
a
just fun.
problem, if you're sexualizing a baby being breastfed, then that's a you issue, not a me issue.
Yeah. Period.
Figure it out.
My old boss was like that, and I fucking loved her. Like, I love her for so many reasons, but she's like from Grass Valley, like total hippie family, and she would pop her titty out anywhere.
Oh,
I was
I had
always
no
like,
fear.
do it, like.
Yeah.
And she was the one that made me think about that because I'm not somebody, I don't have kids, right? And my mom was the same way. My mom would be fucking making spaghetti with Amanda on her tit, just like. Go clean the bathroom. Don't let me put this baby down and fuck you up, Stacey. Like, you know what I mean? My mom was
You're
super
like-
well. Yeah.
Right when that titty fucking your sister got off, but she was.
My mom could
whacking
still run, take her shoe off, she throw it at us, and it was no joke.
Hit you with the chancla.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah.
My firstborn had tongue tie, so I had to use a nipple shield because I had 3rd-degree
Mm-hmm.
trauma to my nipples by the time he was 6 weeks old. And then we found out, like, I didn't even know it was a thing. Took him to a specialist, and they cut his tongue and his lip. And then
Dude,
it
3rd
stopped.
degree is like your sweet spot. What's happening?
Apparently so.
It's that number. That's
Great.
the number.
Yeah.
Right?
Number
It's a
3.
special-
It looked like every time I nursed him, he'd pull away and he'd have blood pouring down his face from my nipple.
Oh my god.
And I was
Oh.
I remember I was
That
holding
is-
him to nurse him, and my mom came over, and I was sitting in the rocking chair with like the breastfeeding pill in him, and I was sobbing, and she's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just trying to mentally prepare to put him on. And she was like, this is ridiculous. And so
Yeah.
we had some specialists help me out, but like I used to have to try to put like, it looks like a little plastic sombrero
Yeah.
over your
Oh,
nipple.
100%. My cousin was a NICU nurse, and I was like, I can't handle more pain. Like, enough
Yeah.
is enough, you know? And she was just like, get the nipple shield. And I was
Yeah,
like,
but then they shame you for that too.
I know, but I was
Why?
like, fuck all you. I can't
Nipple
walk.
confusion.
Yeah, they do make you, but you know what? I never had a problem like with any
I
of that
didn't
stuff.
either.
So there is shaming,
God.
but yeah, for some reason I think I was like in this weird like I was weak in so many ways, like physically and just kind of like, but then there was this other thing where it was like, I am doing like what I want to do for my kid and like nothing really, like pacifier right away. I was like, you're having a pacifier, like
Yeah.
you need something to suck, it's not gonna be my boob right now, you know,
Yeah.
like and
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Because that's what they use.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but there was, I mean, I remember in the hospital feeling that there was that shame, and then once I got home, it was like, I'm just doing what I
Of
think
all
is right.
places, like that should be the most safe space.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
had a board-certified lactation consultant come to our house, and she was like, you shouldn't use the shield. They'll never nurse right again.
Yeah.
Just like how you shouldn't give them a bottle until you're going back to work because they'll never nurse again. All I have to say for moms is give your kid a bottle ASAP, because Henry didn't take a bottle until 2 days before I went back to work, and that was so stressful thinking my child was going to starve.
Yeah.
Like, do whatever the fuck you want.
Yep.
And don't listen to
That's a
anybody
literal
else.
advice that you gave me for my sister. They were like, all that matters is that her son is fed.
Yeah.
If he's not taking breast milk, tell her to move on. Like, it's time.
Because it's so stressful, and then what happens, you get in this like effed up cycle, because then you're stressed. When you're stressed, you're not producing milk.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then your kid's not being fed, and you're like, I don't have formula, like just to, like I didn't have formula to just like go make a bottle if she wasn't gonna eat
And
or
it's
whatever.
so expensive.
Yeah, so it was like, I have to do this, and then like even I would try on my, like when I would be pumping, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna catch up on my emails, and then I would like not produce milk, and I was like, oh my god, and then it turned, you're in this like tailspin, and like you can't really recover, because it all comes down to like your baby has to be fed, you know?
Yeah.
It's also like a special bonding time too, and I
Yeah.
tried to not use my phone when I was nursing. Like, it does a chemical reaction for the baby, and it develops their brain. So like, if me browsing my phone while I'm nursing is gonna mess that up, like, let's just have our time. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know people that are like, oh, well, when I get pregnant, I'm gonna hire a night nurse, and it's like, that is one of the most important times for bonding, is like the feedings. And while it sucks, it doesn't suck forever.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that people are like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna do that, like, blows my mind. Like, this is scientifically proven that it's beneficial.
Yeah.
And you're just like, nope, not gonna be tired. Like, if you're having a kid, you have to acknowledge that you're going to be tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
like a
think
blip
lot of-
in time too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like, what's hard is, especially when you're in it, is like a lot of people have like really strong opinions, like, when I'm gonna be a mom, I'm gonna do this, you know, and then it's like, girl,
It's like,
good
huh,
luck.
you, yeah.
you
throw
know,
that
like,
out the
just you
window.
wait. And that happens all the time. Like, I hear it all the time where it's like, oh no, I'm gonna like bounce back, I'm gonna work out, and it's like, yeah, have fun, good
You
luck.
know what?
You know?
I remember when I was a perfect mom, it was before I had kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. That's just such a different
Yeah,
thing,
we are.
you know? You guys are great moms. Thank you.
We try.
Yeah, my son can't even keep his shit together and not eat food during the podcast.
We both had third-degree tears, but
Yeah.
okay. Okay, Mom,
Jeannie's
close
like-
it up. So, is there anything as we wrap up that you like? If you had a mom group of your own that you guys started, like, what advice would you give? I mean, you pretty much said it. Like, do what is right for you. It doesn't matter. Like, ignore the noise around you. Is that just like the?
I think you have to just go with your gut. Like, if you're stressing out about something, it's probably because you want to do something different than what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like,
And really just, focusing on you and your kid, and like, those are your priorities. Like, that's what I've been talking a lot about in like therapy, is just like compartmentalizing. Like, because if you start to like take that step back and take into like account everything all at once, like, it's just gonna drown you. But it's like, mom first, you know, like, then you know, those are your roles. And just being able to like take those 5 minutes to like also take care of yourself, you know, like, come up with ways like to do that. It feels impossible like all the time, and you know, but you build those routines. I remember it was like at a point where I was like, I can't take a shower anymore like during the day, so it was like, okay, like, now you're gonna go to bed at this time, and then I'm gonna have like this little window that's like just for me to take a shower, like clean up a little bit, like kind of feel like I'm like okay, you know. But
it's amazing what a shower can do for
it's
you.
amazing what a shower can
I
do.
feel
And
that
I
way
would
too.
say too, another thing is like, everyone, like, what I've learned is that like people do want to help, they don't know how to help. So like, you know, because people will say all the time, like, how can I help you? Like, you know, Stacey's great about that. Like, what do you need? And then like, I don't know what I need. You know?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I need like so much right now.
I need
Like,
someone
where
to
do I
tell me
even-
what I need.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like what I learned. My cousin's been really great about that, where like she'll just like show up with random groceries, and
Yeah.
it's like, I
needed that.
Yeah, and it's like, oh,
Didn't know I
I didn't
needed
it.
even like think I liked corn salsa, but like that's what I have, so like I'm gonna eat it. And but like little gestures like go so far, you know.
Yeah.
Or just even like one day, I remember in the very beginning, my aunt came over and like just started like folding my laundry, and I was like, this was really, it was awkward. So like, that's my
Here's
underwear.
my underwear.
Right?
Yeah.
But I was also
Take
just, like,
it.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I was like, thank you, you know. Or even my brother, like just taking my kid to like change her diaper was like, that's one less diaper I have to like think about or change,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
those little things go so far. And because people do want to help, I just don't think they know, and you don't know either.
You don't even know, yeah.
But being able to accept the help too is also really important.
We had one rule that someone told me to enforce, and it was the best thing. If someone comes over and say they want to help you with the baby, I don't need help with the baby.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need help with everything else. So if you're going to come over, you either need to clean my house
Yeah.
or you need to bring me food.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, those
I've
are
heard
huge.
that.
And
I've heard that.
every
Huge.
single
Yeah.
friend or family that did come over did one of those, if not both.
Yeah.
Like they would
That's
show up
dope.
like, here's dinner. there. I'm gonna go do your dishes. You sit down and eat. Like,
Yeah.
the first week home, we had people rotating like meals. They would actually come in and like bring us food, and they're like, "Here's your food. You go sit down. I'll do your dishes."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
that's awesome.
it's life changing, and
That's
it's
dope.
the best thing. But if you say you're gonna help a baby, like help with the baby, no, we don't need help with the baby. We need
Yeah.
help with everything else.
Yeah.
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 Feed us.
That
Tell
makes
us we're
sense.
pretty. That's all we want, man.
Tell us our vaginas are gonna be okay.
Right? Oh my
Oh,
god.
seriously.
Oh my god. Yeah. I think too, just like kind of knowing, like it was really stressful, like teaching, doing long distance learning last year with a kid at home, and like those kinds of things where it's
With
like
an olive at home.
just yeah, and she's like singing and dancing, thinking like the kids are on there for her.
Oh my God.
perform.
So cute.
She's literally like got her piano out, like singing full blast. When I'm like, hey,
Thanks,
guys. Just like
That was Kate. That was
Yeah,
Kate. Kate's
yeah.
like, I'm laying in bed listening to you do all these songs. I'm like, you know the hello song now, bitch.
So it's one of those things though, like, you know, it's like as women, like we can do it. Like women are like superpowers, but like there's also like you gotta be more flexible sometimes where it's like I'm gonna get all my stuff done. It might not be done on the timeline that like, you know, I'm not necessarily gonna be able to do it all at school that day. Like so
Yeah.
give me like a little bit of time, but a little bit more flexibility because I think, you know, you're trying to do so much. And our like society isn't designed for like people to have kids. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you have to, in order to have a job, you have to have daycare or childcare,
Yes.
you know, and then you got to pay for that. Like, and then all these other, it's like all
So
intertwined.
daycare is more expensive than people's salaries.
Yeah, exactly. So like all those things, like, you know, set you apart that make it really challenging.
You mean $1,400 a month isn't cheap?
Dude.
Because that's how much
nuts.
one of my kids is.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
That's not two.
Yeah.
I threw up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really grateful
Yeah.
for this episode because that's the nail in the coffin. Oh, never having.
We also
I'm
spend
anti.
$19,800 a year on healthcare.
Oh my god, I'm anti
I
for
don't even
life,
know.
baby.
I just take it out of
Anti
my
for
check.
life. Yeah.
We did the math a few months ago and it made us sick.
Oh,
You're making me nauseous
go to
right
Canada.
Yeah.
Move in there forever.
So I'll
Yeah.
just go to Poland. They get 9 months of maternity leave.
Yeah.
4-day
I
work
think
week.
Switzerland gets a year.
Yeah, no, it's like insane what other countries do for like women, and then
Yeah.
ours is just not. Like it's like go have sex after 6 weeks
Yeah.
and go back to work.
Male
Sucks
Get your
to
shit
be you.
together. Hello.
I was just gonna say that,
I
I'm
remember
like-
though. I remember being pregnant and being like, because again, like I was like 33, and I was like finally realizing, like, wow, I was such a dick to so many friends that were pregnant because I didn't know, you know.
Yeah.
hard to relate
You don't
until
know.
you go through things.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. Like I look at like the baby shower gifts I gave, and I was like, dude, those are useless. like those
Onesies?
kinds of things.
Onesies.
Yeah.
Don't
Like,
give
Okay, good.
onesies.
Yeah, put us
Stupid
on because
stuff,
we don't
yeah.
know.
I
No,
know.
but,
I'm
like,
like
just little
smiling,
things.
but like,
Yeah.
I give one season.
Right, exactly. Like you just don't know, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, I always thought I was like,
Gift
oh, I'm so
cards.
empathetic, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like
Cards, got it.
I don't even know where I was
Take
going.
note.
But yeah, there's something to that where, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Like, damn, that makes sense. Now we know food gift cards.
Seriously, thank you.
Things to help the mom.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's gonna give the baby clothes and $1 million books and like
Yeah.
toys that they're never even gonna touch. So like, give things that can help the family.
Okay.
Okay.
Or just like
Done.
Or just
Noted.
come
Done.
take the baby for a walk so
No
the
thanks.
mom can
No
shower
thanks.
and then you come back and you feed her.
That's what I've heard a lot. Take
Yeah.
the baby, go get the baby, and let mom shower.
Especially if they're like colicky or something.
Yeah.
They like the bounce of the stroller. Give mom a break.
Yeah.
Let her take a nap. Let her eat. Let her shower. Bring it back.
Okay. Got it. Got it.
Noted.
Well, damn, ladies, this is good.
Yeah, thank
we
you.
appreciate you being on here. I know it's like, I don't know if it was hard to talk about your experience, but a lot of women don't. I mean, a lot of people, including us as women, don't know about this. So.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I appreciate the vulnerability with your uncontrollable farts.
And I
That's
appreciate the
what I'm here
vulnerability
for.
with your vaginas.
And stimulation therapy is not what you think, guys. It's not what you
No,
That
it's
is
more like it's not
exciting.
what Melissa thinks.
Yeah, it's not that exciting.
It sounded exciting. It was,
Yeah.
I
It
was
does
excited
work,
about
though.
the
Like, how do you
65-year-old
sign up for
ladies.
stimulation therapy?
I did hear the ankle part.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did it.
Right when you said stimulation
That was
therapy,
it.
I was
We
like,
checked out. We checked out. Anyway,
done.
well, thank you so
Yeah, thank
much.
you.
Thank you for being on.
Thanks
We
for
appreciate you
having
guys.
Beautiful mess. Yes, life is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess.